If the house is all payoff, they don't own anything. So it will be like fair to say, can you carry the 20% and DSCR the 80, or what will be my terms?
Great question. So it's a really good situation when the seller doesn't owe anything, right?
So
We're going to go ahead and get going here. So what I wanted to share with you guys tonight, and feel free to just raise your hand or do it electronically or whatever. If you have a question, yeah, stop and I can answer your questions along the way because it's not crucial that I go through this whole, presentation. So what I'm going to do is review quickly what we talked about last week, which was some of the challenges and solutions with doing a stack method or like seller carryback, Morby method, all the different names. And I'm going to just touch on the ones that we talked about last week. And then I'm going to go into some new ones that I think are the big ones that we really need to know about. Um, so feel free to take notes. Like I said, stop me and ask a question if you have one. And I believe I will be able to send you a copy of my notes. Plus, we'll also send a link to the Fathom note taker. So you'll have plenty of information back at you after this. And especially if you guys have questions, that'd be great. So let me go ahead and share my screen over here. I'm going to change. All right, can you guys see my screen there? Great.
yes.
Marcel's giving me the thumbs up. This is our little Fathom recorder here. I can move him back over here. Okay. So stack method challenges and solutions, a guide to some of the problems and solutions you may encounter during seller carryback deals. Let me see. I need to click something over here to get this to advance. There we go. Last week we talked about one of the problems that people have is bad underwriting. And this is based on actual experience of our team doing over 100 of these deals. Quick scenario here, if the purchase price is 500 and you're going to get a loan for 80%, that would be 400K. So your seller carryback amount you're thinking is going to be 100K. But you need to focus on real numbers because really you have the down payment, which is the 100K, but you also need probably an assignment fee, an agent fee, a title fee, and a transaction funding fee. So you actually might be asking the seller to carry back more like 200K instead of 100K. And so in that case, let's say that you have two loans now, 4,000 from the primary DSCR loan and 2,000 from the seller carryback. So your net, let's say your rent potential is $5,000 a month. Well, in that case, because you aren't borrowing 100,000 from the seller carryback, you're borrowing 200,000. Now you've got this extra 2,000 you have to take care of, and that's a net loss of 1,000 a month. So basically, just really need to do your underwriting and know all the different numbers so that everything is going to line up and work for you. Another one that we talked about last week is seller misunderstanding. Make sure the seller knows all the details up front. I think just making sure everything is spelled out. Um, we always suggest you start with an LOI. That way it's detailed, but it can be negotiated. It's not set in stone like a contract would be, right? And the main things that you need to include in that LOI would be the structure of the amount that they're carrying back, how the repayment is going to work, and what protections they have. So just clear communication with the seller will usually take care of that. Next, we have the seller attorney role. Sometimes a seller will bring their attorney in to look at things, and if the seller gets involved, sometimes their attorney may advise against because they don't understand the protections or they're concerned about the second position lien. If that happens, you've really got two options. One is to take the time to explain the process and the protections and the concerns and address all those with the attorney, or walk away. Negotiation is the key to closing these deals. So you've got to be willing to explain things to the seller and whoever else are, key decision makers in these kind of deals. Title company confusion. Now, I don't think we touched on this one last week, so this is a new one. Common issues, and this is where our system, I think, really makes a difference. A lot of people have tried to do seller carryback deals in one closing. Okay, and they try to put the seller carryback numbers on the purchase and sales contract. We recently had someone who did that, and that just doesn't work. You have to basically start over with a new um, you have to start over with a new contract. So as I was saying, we have if you try to do it all in one closing, the title company gets confused because they don't understand where the down payment money is coming from, right? Or they'll say you can't do that or that's fraud, right? Because they don't understand how to deal with the seller carryback. The solution that we found for this is, first of all, work with vetted title companies, work with title companies who have done seller carryback so they know what's happening, but also separate to two closings. And we've talked about this before. The first transaction is just a normal close at the title company with our funds coming in for the down payment and closing costs. And then the second transaction to create a seller carryback note or a preferred equity is with our attorney. So by separating those two out, and then what you do is in the purchase contract, it doesn't say anything about the seller carryback. The seller carryback agreement is a separate document, so the title company doesn't get confused. And that way, it's just a much smoother process. So that's some things to keep in mind when working with title companies. And next is this is the big one, okay? Because if and we've had our team has told us repeatedly, if there's one thing that will crash one of these deals, it's usually the DSCR lender. You have to be working with the right lender and you have to meet their expectations and they have to meet our expectations. Everything has to sync up for this to work. So some of the key challenges with DSCR lenders is appraisal is too low or loan to value is too low on the loan itself, or you don't qualify for a DSCR loan, or there's lender rules that either aren't working for them or aren't working for us. So let's go through each of these four different issues separately and see what we've got here. So when we say the appraisal is too low, let's say that you were hoping that it was going to be a 500K purchase, but the appraisal came back at 375. Well, the lender is not going to lend 80% on the 500K. They're only going to lend 80% on the 375, which means you're only going to get 300K. So what do you do with that? Well, you may ask the seller, hey, look, your property didn't appraise at what we thought it would. We're going to need to lower that purchase price from 500 to 400. So reducing the offer is one way of solving that. Because you're going to need a down payment now of 200K plus closing costs to be able to cover that. So that may not work for you in terms of your underwriting. So again, renegotiating the offer price is one way to solve that. Another is to get a second appraisal. Maybe you just need somebody that will actually appraise it at the value you were thinking it was going to be at. I don't know. Sometimes you can get a second appraisal and it'll come out more favorably for you. The other option, the third option, would be ask the lender to increase their loan to value from, well, 80% is pretty high. At that point, I don't know that you're going to get them to go higher by the amount you would need. But if the numbers were different, you might be able, if it was at 70%, you might be able to get them to go up to 75 or 80%. Or again, you just walk away because not all deals are going to work for a zero down purchase. Okay. Then let's talk about lender loan to value is too low. You might be thinking, hey, I qualify for 80% or 70% loan to value, and you're trying to purchase a property for 500K, and the lender comes back and says, we can only fund 60% loan to value for whatever reason. Doesn't matter what the reason is. Now, well, I would say the first thing is go with a different lender that'll give you a higher LTV, right? Because you're probably not going to have enough seller carryback to cover everything else if they're only giving you a fraction of the purchase price. The other thing you could do is again renegotiate with the seller, see if you can bring their price down a little bit, or again, you can walk away. So loan to value is an important piece. You have to make sure that the lender is going to bring enough of the cost so that the seller carryback covers the rest and you can still purchase the property for zero down. The last one here on this page is qualifying for the DSCR loan. And some of the things that can be a problem with that is the area that your property that you're trying to purchase is in. If the area is too rural, for instance, it may be hard to fund. DSCR lenders look at what a property can purchase. DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. The amount that they're going to loan you has to be covered by what the property can produce. So if the property is in a rural area, they may be like, yeah, you're not going to get the rents you think you're going to get. We're not going to cover that. Yeah, we can't fund this. Or maybe it's the type of property. Sometimes a multi-use property has other requirements. If it's just residential, that's one thing. But if it's mixed use, like residential, and then there's a storefront at the bottom, something like that. Welcome, Benji. Glad you're here, man. We're just going through some different things here, and we'll share this with you at the end so you can catch up on what we already shared, okay? So the type of use, multi-use, might have other requirements that the lender is going to ask of you. Sometimes it's the borrower that has trouble qualifying for a DSCR loan. It might be that your credit is too low. You might need to get a credit sponsor. We have people who bring a credit sponsor on their team so that they can qualify for the loan. And that's something you can do. That's a solution right there. Also, it may be that the borrower doesn't have enough experience. We've seen this where brand new people who have never done a deal before are trying to do a zero down purchase on a multi-million dollar property. Now, the lender's going to go, how much experience do you have in real estate? Oh, I don't own any property and I've never done a deal before. I don't think they're going to risk their money on you being able to be profitable on a multi-million dollar property if you don't have any experience at all. It's kind of like Monopoly. You don't start off with three hotels. You start off with one house, and then you add another and another. And once you have four houses, then you can move up to hotels, right? And people don't understand it. It takes time to build that experience. There's nothing wrong with starting small and building your way up. Or the other solution would be find a partner. If you don't have the experience, just like if you didn't have the credit, you can get a credit sponsor. You can also JV with somebody who has the experience in that type of class and have them partner with you. You're going to learn a lot from them, from their experience, and the DSCR lender will look at their experience instead of yours. And so you might be able to get into one of those bigger deals early on if you find the right JV partner. All right, let's move on to the last section here, which is the different DSCR lender requirements and red flags. One of the things I want you to think about, a critical consideration here, is that you will likely need to talk to 10 or more brokers to find the right lender. We say that when you join our process with the stack method, and one of the things that we offer is a list of lenders. Well, it's not actually lenders, it's brokers. And these brokers are brokers that we have found lenders through that have closed seller carryback deals. So we know that they can find lenders that will work for most properties, for most scenarios, for a lot of borrowers. But what people don't understand is you're not just going to get a name of a lender and, like magic, that first lender is going to fit, everything's going to fit perfectly and they're going to fund your deal. That is very rare. In most cases, you'll have to talk to several lenders. That's why we give you a list. We have a few that we can start you off with before you even join on, but then they'll give you a list. And the thing is just to call through and find out, hey, here's what I've got. What are your requirements? Do you think this will work? What kind of LTV do you think you can give us? And have those conversations and get those numbers and find out which of those lenders is going to work best for you. It's just like anything else. This is a huge purchase. Even though you may be purchasing for zero down, this is a huge purchase. So you want to make sure that you are getting the right lender. If you're buying a house, you might talk to several different lenders or a broker who can find you the right lender so that you can have the best interest rate and then be able to afford that house. Same thing in this situation. You need to talk to more than one to find the right lender. Now, what are the things that we're gonna find out from the lender? Number one, down payment. That's gonna be your LTV. How much can they give you, loan to value? And then how much do you need to bring for a down payment? They're also gonna ask you, well, where is this money coming from? Are you bringing that money? A lot of lenders will say that the money cannot be a third party funds. They want the borrower to have skin in the game. This is the case with business loans. Okay, with a lot of times, if you're trying to get a business loan, they absolutely will not allow you to have third-party funds cover the whole thing. They want you to have some skin in the game. Now, we really can't do anything about that. We're not here to deceive anybody. So if the lender says it absolutely cannot be third-party funds, then we're going to say move on to the next lender because we are a third party lender, funder, and we will not lie to someone to say that we're not. So we are gonna do the things they've told us to do so that the flow of the money works properly. But if they say absolutely no third party funds, then we're going to move on to another lender. Another thing that we cannot do is a gift letter. Some lenders will say, hey, just get a gift letter. I'm the buyer's brother and I am gifting them 100K. That's fraud. Okay. We cannot lie and say that we're your brother when we're not your brother. And people have asked us to do that. We're not doing that. So that's out. And then the last one is sometimes the lender will say the funder needs to sign on to the operating agreement and be part of that. It has to be a JV thing. We will not do that because what some people have said is, well, just sign on to the operating agreement. We'll get the funding done and then we'll take you off the operating agreement. Well, again, that's fraud. If we're not going to be partnering with you moving forward, then we really can't be on the operating agreement, which is why we will never sign on to an operating agreement with our borrower. That's just something we will not do. Okay. The other thing that you might run into is the sourcing. Okay. What does that mean? Where's the money coming from? Even if the DSCR lender says it's okay if it's third party, we know it's not a gift letter, and you don't have to sign on to the operating agreement, they may also, though, say, but where's the money coming from? It needs to come from the buyer's LLC, which is exactly what we set up for you. Okay. The borrower or the buyer's LLC needs to be where the money comes from. And in some cases, they actually want a holding LLC. So they want the money to come from a holding LLC into the borrower's LLC, and then from there into title. And if that's the case, we can do that. In some cases, that's happening. But the main thing is here, it's the Relay bank account. We use Relay bank account because we have a good relationship with them. We have large transfer rates that we can do. That's why we say we can do seller carryback up to $1 million because we have permission from Relay to do seller carryback or transfers up to $1 million. So what we do is we have you create a Relay bank account in your buying LLC, and then you give us control of that account. We can put the funds in the account if they need a proof of funds and then move them right back out again. And then when it comes time to close, we can put those funds in your LLC and then move them from there to the title company. All the while, we have control of the funds, but it's in your LLC's name. That's how we overcome the sourcing issue that almost all lenders have. Almost all lenders want the money to be coming from the buyer's LLC. Okay. If we have to do the extra step of the holding company, it's just one extra Relay bank account. We go from us to holding to your LLC to title. No problem. If that's what they want, we can do that. The last one is seasoning. Um, a lot of times lenders will say, we need to see the money in your account for 6 months. You need to give us statements showing that the money's been in there for 6 months. We cannot do seasoning. We're not going to put money in your account and leave it there for 6 months. We are going to put the money in, take a snapshot, and take it back out again. Now, when they say they need seasoning, the best thing to do is ask clarifying questions. Ask the lender, what are you looking for? What is it exactly you need? Do you just need a snapshot that shows the money's in our account so that you know that we can cover it at closing? Because we can do that. Or do you need bank statements over the last 6 months that show the money's been sitting there for 6 months? We cannot do that. Okay. So we need to find out what it is they're looking for and see if it's going to work for us or not. If it's not going to work for us, then it's time to find another lender. And we're right back to that group of 10 brokers and maybe the lenders all that they have. And, it's a process. It's a process. But hopefully that makes sense in terms of the seasoning and what their requirements are. Last thing I want to leave you with, two key takeaways here. Look, if you don't qualify with a DSCR lender for a particular deal, maybe you shouldn't be doing that deal. People who do DSCR loans do underwriting all day, every day for the asset class that you're trying to buy. And if they say it's not a deal, then it's probably not a deal for you either. Okay. So that's one thing I would say. And then the other thing is, as I always say, if it was easy, everyone would do it. This is going to take time. It's going to take effort, but it's worth it if you stick in there. We have one of our recent borrowers who's got a closing date coming up here in just 2 weeks, and we're so excited. He has done all the things that we have coached him through, and our team has helped him on the back end. He has done it the right way, and now they're getting ready to close on this property. We're so excited. So yeah, it's not going to be easy, and there were hiccups along the way for him, but that's why we have a team helping you guys out. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to see if we have any questions out there.
And Benji, we're just glad you're on here.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you made it.
It was teamwork, right, Benji, to get you on? Anyway, I think he's
All right,
frozen. Not sure.
anybody have any questions about what we shared tonight? Yes, Karina, go
All
ahead.
right, Karina, yeah, go ahead and unmute.
How do you know when it's a good deal? Like, what can determine that? Like the price, city.
Yeah, I would say all of the above. Here's what we always recommend, okay? If you're purchasing a single family home, find somebody who's purchased 50 single family homes and have them look at it with you and have them underwrite it for you. And sometimes some people even will charge for underwriting. Other people will do it just because they want to help you get ahead, right? Find somebody who's got experience in the asset class that you're looking at. If you're looking at multifamily, find somebody who's already purchased several multifamilies and know what they're doing. If
Okay.
you're new, it's always best to get the advice and have the eyes from somebody else who is experienced in that asset class. If you get somebody, you could have somebody who's bought 100 Airbnbs and you're looking at a multifamily. Hey, will you take a look at this for me? They have no idea what they're doing
Yeah.
because they haven't done a multifamily. And the things that they have to look at in the underwriting is very different for that. So again, find someone who's experienced in the asset class that you're looking at buying and then ask them to help you, ask them to underwrite with you. Maybe even better, bring them in as a JV partner. Say, hey, look, you've got the experience. I think I've got a deal here. If you look at it with me and it looks good, we can do this together in whatever split you want because you're the one with the experience and I would love to learn from you. And that way you're bringing something of value to them that would encourage them to want to do that underwriting for you and to work with you, right?
Okay.
Does that make
Thank
sense?
you.
Yeah, that's how I
Yeah.
would do it.
Makes sense.
The other
Yeah.
thing I would say, Karina, is if you're looking at acquiring properties with a more like Morby method specifically, you definitely want to make sure there is enough equity to work with. So again, that comes back to that underwriting component, right? Whether or not there's going to be that spread, but we always say like 35% or higher for
35%.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, and
ideally.
that's where the calculator that we gave you guys will come in.
Mhm.
Our calculator is not designed to do all the underwriting to see if it's a good deal or not. All our calculator does is you plug in the numbers you have and you say, hey, is this even possible to buy this zero down?
Right.
And if the underwriting looks good and the zero down calculator looks good, then we can start going, okay, let's talk about submitting this and getting the ball rolling.
Right. The other component of that that's really important though too is, that whole qualifying for the loan, right? So whether you work with
Mhm.
Elizabeth who does PML, she's on here, whether you decide to go DSCR, which I think Elizabeth also has connections to DSCR lenders, she's a broker for them.
Mhm.
So, you can already begin to see where you are. And those DSCR lenders will absolutely look at several parts of, who is Karina, right? In terms of, the credit score, the asset itself, what it appraises for. They are going to do their due diligence on their end as well. But if your credit score is like 625 or so, you should be good, to get a decent LTV
Okay.
based off of that. So that's another really critical component. I think initially upfront, what I'm finding with anybody who is newer to Morbies, and this is a conversation I had today with another borrower, also is he's looking to get into Morby. single family first and then jump into multifamilies, is that the conversation with the seller, he's like, what do I disclose and what do I not disclose? Right. And so just knowing that your conversation with the seller is on that contract that's on the front end, right? They do not need to know about the second note and the attorney that you have, and they're, it's gonna, so they're looking at basically, yeah, go ahead.
You
And I
said
can,
you said the seller. You're talking about the lender.
oh, sorry, the lender. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, the seller definitely needs to know
Need
about
to
the seller
know
carryback.
about that because they need to know how you're
Right.
acquiring this property, right? So there's a disclosure on the front end too, where they need to know that. And the other thing too is, are they open to the terms? First of all, because you are going to be doing terms. Are they open to that? That down payment. Are they open to that? Or do they want more? Are they, because some sellers will come back and negotiate with you 2 or 3 times just on that down payment, right? So like knowing really where they are and whether it's a win-win for you for the property to cash flow and the numbers that make sense for you, but also for them and they're willing to move forward, right? With that portion of it. Does that make sense? Okay, perfect.
Yes,
Yeah.
makes sense. Thank you.
I'll go back to the basics. In order for buying a property zero down, there has to be three things. There has to be a new loan in place. Okay. There has to be enough equity to cover the down payment, closing costs, and fees. And the seller needs to be willing to carry back that amount. If you have those three things, then we can look at the numbers and make sure. But yeah, obviously the seller needs to know what you're asking. An LOI is the best place to start. I wouldn't start with a purchase contract. You're going to end up going back and having to redo that anyway and have them sign again, which is not good. An LOI that states the purchase price, the property, the amount the seller owes on it, so they know how much equity is there, or just the amount they're willing to carry back out of that equity. Those are the details that we need to start with, right? Our team can help with the purchase contract. Our team can help with the final note and how those numbers come out in the end. But it is a process. There's negotiation that happens there. As far as the lender's concerned, exactly what Marcella said. As far as they're concerned, it's a regular close. The funds are coming out of your account. You're paying for the down payment. The lender's bringing the rest. The whole note and that not really important for the DSCR lender. Okay, we're not trying to hide anything. They need to know that the down payment is coming from a third party. That's us, right? They have to be okay with that, like I talked about. But they don't necessarily need to know the terms of the note and how much the seller is carrying back and all of that. That's really not for them. Yeah.
If the house is all payoff, they don't own anything. So it will be like fair to say, can you carry the 20% and DSCR the 80, or what will be my terms?
Great question. So it's a really good situation when the seller doesn't owe anything, right? I would confirm that, like make sure there isn't any liens, make sure there isn't any, other tax liens, mechanics liens, any other kind of liens. There's no other mortgage on the property. You want to verify that because they could say that. Oh yeah, but we owe 200,000 in taxes. You know what I mean? And then you're like, what? So yes, a free and clear where the seller owns the property outright is the best because then they could sell or carry back any amount they want, right? What we typically do is you want to add in a little bit for the closing costs and the fees. So if you qualify, let's say you qualify for 75% loan to value, instead of asking the seller to carry back 25%, we might ask them to carry back 30 or 35%, depending on what the closing costs are going to be, so that there's enough extra. And also, we've told people this before, almost every one of these deals that close, it's not only that you purchase the property for zero down, a lot of times the buyer puts some money in their pocket. But again, the more money you put in your pocket, the more over leveraged you are. And so you have to make sure that you can cover the debt with the DSCR lender and with whatever the terms of the note are, right? You have to make sure you have enough cash flow to cover that. So, we're not here to put a bunch of money in your pocket and have you default on the loan and then the property goes back to the seller and then you're underwater because you now owe more than it's worth. right? That is not the scenario we want to have for people, but it does help to have a little bit more. So again, 75% DSCR loan, 25% down payment. Maybe we do 35% seller carryback.
Do I go by the price it's on Zillow? They don't have a real estate agent yet, so
Yeah,
they don't
great
know the
question.
value of the
I
house.
right. I would do your due diligence to figure out what the property's worth. You know, you're going to have to kind of underwrite and figure out what that property is worth in that area at this time, right? Ultimately, it's going to come down to either the purchase price that you agree with the seller or the appraisal. The DSCR lender is going to loan, like we said, like 75% loan to value. They're only going to loan on the lower of the two. If the purchase price is here and the appraisal comes in here, great for you, but they're only going to loan you on the purchase price. If the purchase price is here and the appraisal comes in here lower, they're going to loan on the appraisal, and you're not going to have as much money towards that price that you gave them, which means you're going to have a bigger seller carryback, or you're going to have to bring some money to the table yourself. So figuring out what the purchase price, what a good price would be for you and what that's worth in that area, and then negotiating. Again, this whole strategy is based on negotiation. You're going to be negotiating with that seller, not only on the price, but also on the terms of the seller carryback so that it works for you on your underwriting so that you can cash flow the property. We only have like about 2 minutes left, 3 minutes left. Any,
Benji.
any other burning questions?
Benji does. Benji, go ahead.
Benji, my man, what do you got?
I got a question. So, if we have to bring some money in the table, how would you do that? Because when we bring, can we bring money to the table?
You know, these things can be structured a lot of different ways. We were just looking at a deal for one of our borrowers where there's not going to be enough money to sell or carry back for a zero down. But if
Hmm.
they wanted to bring in a private money lender,
No, no, we bringing.
that's what I'm saying. The buyer would bring in a DSCR loan, the seller carryback, and then if you need to make up a little bit more, if it's worth it, get a private money lender to come in and cover that extra.
No, but we have like so. I remember what happened. Dylan inherited some cash,
Okay.
so so doing the deal and he bringing in the money. How would that help the situation? How would you do that? Because he has a couple hundred grand that he could bring in. So you
Right.
don't really need the 30 something percent. We don't need the full we could do the 25 and still have a 10-15% at hand. How would you do that? Would it go into the fund that you created, the LLC, and then you
Yes.
hold it and then
Yes.
you close it out there?
He would put the money into the LLC. So part of the money would go in from us, part of the money would go in from him, and then the money from the lender and all of that together would make the deal work. Yeah,
Okay.
that gives you more options when you have a little bit of cash. Now, what I would say is, look, don't use your own money as much as you can. Keep that as a
I know
reserve,
that.
right?
Yeah,
But
right,
but if it's close, if it's tight, and it's a
right.
really good deal, then
Hmm.
yes, bringing some money to the table could help get it to the finish line. Exactly.
And we have less than a minute, so we're
Oh,
probably all going to get kicked
we're
off.
gonna, yeah,
Benji, we can always definitely talk to you off the
yeah, for
Zoom.
sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about that off the line. Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks,
sounds good. Priya,
guys.
thank you
Hey,
for coming
thanks
in.
for coming out,
Reach out to
and
me if you need anything.
we'll see you next week.
Okay, sounds
Thanks,
good.
guys.